Hi, and welcome to Hopkinton Works. I'm Elaine Lazarus, Hopkinton Town Manager, and today we're going to be talking about municipal finances with Kyla Lapierre, Chief Financial Officer in Hopkinton. Got a lot going on this time of year, the budget season, and so we're going to devote some time to talk about the town's finances, the town's budget, how we get there, and how perhaps you can participate. So welcome, Kyla.
Thank you.
So Kyla, first of all, how long have you worked for the town?
I started in February of 24.
Okay.
So prior to that, I spent 30 years at State Street Bank in Boston, running their global operations. So vastly different from municipal finance. It's been a learning curve for me, but I've really enjoyed the past year and a half. And banking is totally different in the private sector than municipal finance, but with the people across the town, the department heads, and of course you, Elaine, it's been good to come in and get involved in the different budget planning and capital planning. So it's been an interesting year and a half.
I can imagine. So you've probably had a lot to learn, and there are people who enter the field of municipal finance, I'm guessing, from various paths. What is how can someone get into municipal finance, and is there a typical path, or is everyone coming from a different place?
Yeah. So when I look across the finance department, and there's 8 of us in the department, we all seem to have taken a different path. So there's 2 people that have been part of private banking, like teller or a loan operator, another person in payroll that has done payroll her entire career. The assessor has been an appraiser as well as an assessor for 30-something years. So there's different paths that everybody has chosen, it seems. There's to start in municipal finance, I think you can start anywhere. We have people that have started at the administrative assistant level and have worked their way up. And then we have 2 deputies, a deputy assessor and a deputy treasurer collector, who are progressing in their careers to become the treasurer collector as well as the principal assessor. So it depends on what your interest is.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so I know we have a finance department that incorporates assessing, treasury, and payroll, and general finance all in one department. In some towns, these are separate departments. What are the advantages or disadvantages of having everyone in one large department?
Yeah. So I'll start with the advantages. I like a bigger department. I used to manage thousands of people. So managing a group of 8 is very small scale to what I'm used to. But if you were to segregate just the assessor or just the treasury or just the payroll, you would only have 1 or 2 people within that department. And so you wouldn't have a lot of opportunity to do cross-training or things like that. Combining the departments, you have the ability to not have key person dependency. So you have people learning both the assessor and the treasurer and the payroll jobs all at the same time. To me, that becomes more valuable to an employee because they're not just learning one function. You have a variety of opportunity to advance yourself in your career. I also think it's important that you have the overall understanding of the impact to a resident. So as the assessor is setting the tax rate, you understand how that impacts the collections and how that impacts the residents. So when they start asking you questions about exemptions or tax rate or, why is my bill going up so much, you understand the full process and you can talk more intelligently about it.
Are there any disadvantages to a larger department?
How busy it is. So within the finance department, we are being pulled into payroll, into assessing, into treasury collecting, into the sewer and water bills. It's not just segregated on one specific task, it's across all of the tasks. So it is constantly busy and you're challenged to keep up with it at times.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sounds like a bustling place. Let's talk about the budget, the town's budget. So the town has to set an annual budget, and it has to be balanced. The select board has asked for level service budgets this year. Can you describe the process that leads up to the final budget vote at the annual town meeting? How do we get there?
Sure. So it starts with obviously the recommendation memo from you and the select board going out to all department heads. Each department has to submit their own budget and prioritize accordingly. They should come in at the recommendation that was set by the select board. Once those are all delivered in by our calendar that we distribute out to everybody, it's consolidated. So we have an overall look of what the operating requests are. Then each department head needs to meet with us to explain what their budgeting request is. So once we complete all of those meetings with the department heads, then you and I take a look at what the overall operating budget request is to make sure that we can afford it all. And if we can't afford it all because our expenses are greater than our revenues, then we have to make certain cuts and recommendations. Once we have a good feel for it and you make the recommendation to the select board, each department head then goes in front of the select board to do the same process all over again. So these are the requests. This is why we want them. And then the select board makes their approval or their recommendation, and it goes to the appropriation committee. So then the department heads go in front of the appropriation committee and do the same process all over again. So a lot of the residents of Hopkinton aren't aware of the process. It has to go through so many levels before it actually gets part of town meeting. And that's not just the case with the operating budget. It's also the case with capital planning. So each department head, in parallel with the operational budget, does the same thing with their capital requests. So they have to submit, they have to explain to the capital committee, they have to explain to you, they have to explain to select board, they have to explain to appropriation. So the process is extremely thorough. And I feel bad for the department heads because they have to do it so many times, but it is part of our process and part of our policy. And that's why it's so thorough before it gets to town meeting.
And it's a long process too, but it's a structured process. So, in September, we're planning out this whole time frame. So there's a set timeline for all of these things to occur that has to be set before October 1st. And so it is a structured, and it doesn't sound structured, but it is structured. And that leads to, the appropriation committee is really the final, report that goes to town meeting. And that's prepared in March, April.
Yeah.
So we start in September and it goes all the way to that point too.
Yeah.
And so what are the opportunities for residents to participate in this process? I mean, obviously there's public meetings that they can attend or watch on HCAM or some other local medium, and they can read, in the paper. But is there a way they can actively participate in this process?
Yeah, so they can join those appropriation meetings, select board meetings, capital improvement committee meetings. Those are all open meetings that they can join in, ask questions, or just be listening participants. We also have budget listening sessions that have been held. There was one at select board about, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have a docket where they can actually submit questions or submit comments that get consolidated prior to town meeting. And then we usually hold an open meeting forum that addresses those questions, and they can participate in that meeting to hear feedback then as well.
And there's a couple of public hearings. So Appropriation Committee will be having a public hearing as well at the end of the process too. So there's a lot of opportunities for people to participate, but also to ask questions. They can ask questions throughout the process to you and I or anyone, board members, any staff.
My email is available on the town website, and some residents have reached out to me already.
So going beyond the individual department operating budgets, what are some of the other costs or programs that the town funds in the budget? I mean, you mentioned capital. When we talk about capital, what are we talking about there?
So capital expenses is anything over $25,000 that the town is requesting. And it can range from carpet replacement at the senior center, or roadway improvements, or the HVAC systems at the police department and the fire department. So they are improvements across the town that are critically important in order to sustain the infrastructure. Every once in a while, there are going to be things like a fence at Sandy Beach, or things that improve the community. And we do not only 1 year plan, so we're working on the FY27 capital plan now, but we look out across 5 years. So we have a good forecast from the future. And then we have a 10-year vehicle plan that the town has as well.
And how are those projects funded? Is it different than the operating budget?
It is. It depends on the year. So last year, when we were planning for FY26, we had excess free cash. So we did not have to use debt to fund the projects, which was nice. So we had the free cash, and that's how those projects were funded. The same is being planned for FY27. We think we're going to have enough free cash to fund our capital improvements, which are coming in about $10 million at the current time. So once again, we are not anticipating having to go out for debt. I don't believe that's going to be the case in 28 and 29. The 5-year capital plan increases significantly over those years. We have some major projects that we are looking at, especially for the water and sewer, the MWRA, and obviously the school HVAC project, if that is approved, that's substantial as well.
Great. Things like insurance and benefits, those are also included in the operating budget.
Those are included in the operating budget, as well as the school operating budget. That it wraps into our overall operating budget too.
And you mentioned the term free cash.
Yeah.
Where does free cash come from, and how is that different than the other money that the town uses to fund its budget?
So you can think of free cash as money that the town hasn't spent the prior year. So as an example, if we had $100 million in our operating budget, but yet all of the department heads didn't spend all of their operating budget, and we had $10 million left, that $10 million would become free cash that can be used the following fiscal year once it's certified.
So it's money that's been appropriated but is left over from the previous year. Okay, that's interesting. Why don't we just give it back rather than spend it? It's sometimes the question that we hear.
Yep. So you giving back, another way of giving back is to use the money for capital, so you don't have to go out for debt. That's fiscally responsible. That way we don't continue to increase the amount of debt that we have on the books, and eventually we'll be able to pay down the various projects.
Makes sense. So what do we do when we get to a situation where the operating budgets that we see, and we all agree that these are, maybe it's the level funding, level service. What if it's more than the revenues that we're going to receive each year? What is the process for then dealing with that? Because we can't have a budget that's out of balance.
Right. There are a couple of ways to deal with it. Some communities use free cash to offset operating budgets. That is not part of our financial policy, so we try not to do that. We would then look at the different departments and see if there are areas where we can decrease the services that we provide in order to draw down our expenses to come more in line with the revenues. There's also an option called an override. So we can go back to town meeting and ask the residents to approve an override, which means they would approve a tax or increasing a levy greater than 2.5%, which is our allowable increase. So there have been times when we've done overrides as well as underrides in the town of Hopkinton. So that to me is a last case resort for us, and hopefully we don't have to go there.
Yeah, and I think that's a more difficult process to do either of those, because it also has to go to a ballot vote. So it not only is there a town meeting vote to go in that direction, but also the entire community gets to vote via ballot measure as well. So it's the way it was set up by the legislature is to make it difficult.
Yeah.
So on purpose. And, because people are in charge of their own finances in their community. And what happens when there's a revenue surplus? I mean, we've talked about free cash. Is that the only mechanism for dealing with a surplus is free cash?
Well, free cash is probably the most common. An underride is another source that could be taken by the town. And then you look at different projects. Can you use that money to put it in stabilization? Because if you have excess money, you may have it this year, you may not have it in the subsequent years. So put it in a savings account that the town could use at a future year would be my recommendation.
That's a good point. And the town has a general stabilization fund, but also one for a capital.
Yes.
So you can make some choices there, whether you set aside for capital or for general municipal uses.
Yeah, we were very lucky last year to be able to put $5 million in the capital stabilization fund that can be used for future use.
And I think that was the first time that it happened in many years.
Many years, yes.
So it's nice to
Yes.
have that savings account. What are some other aspects of municipal finance that we haven't talked about, if any? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot. There's budgets, but then there's other aspects of municipal finance. For example, the town has investments. The town does banking, assessing.
So investments is a good one. So the treasurer collector is also responsible for all of the deposits and all of the investments across town. And on a quarterly basis, he has to generate a report that goes to you in the select board to say this was the return on the investments. He actively participates with all of the banks that do those investments on behalf of the town to make sure that we are following the guidelines that are set forth by the state. So right now, as of the May town meeting, we became a prudent investor, which means we are able to diversify even more in our investments. And you've really seen an uptick in our investment returns over the past quarter with that new policy.
How much do you think it has changed? By what percent? Do you know?
At least 25%.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's substantial.
Wow. So is that going to result in more free cash eventually, perhaps?
It increases our revenue. So if we don't budget enough of our revenue, then it will result in free cash. But you'll see when we're planning for FY27 that our revenue numbers have increased significantly because of the investment income.
Well, okay, great. Could you please tell us something about what you're currently working on or worked on recently that's not budget related?
Sure. So I felt there was a need to streamline across the finance department when I joined. Everything was very manual. So one of the things that we've been looking at is new software that will allow the department to become more efficient and more accurate with all aspects of it. So we actually implemented 2 new software programs this summer. The first one was Harper's, a new payroll system for us, which will go live in January. So over the past 6 months, we have done a lot of training. We have done a lot of historical data building up through Harper's. And we are doing parallel processing now in November and December to make sure we're ready to hit the ground running on January 1st. The second thing we've done is implemented a new budgeting software called ClearGov. And ClearGov not only does operational budgeting, it also does capital planning. And to me, that's made a huge difference in the whole capital improvement process this year because we have a consolidated look and feel of every request coming from the department heads. And when you're presenting that to the capital committee, they all look and feel the same. The attachments are there, and then you can look at the cost estimates, you can look at the pictures. Everything's at the touch and feel of the capital committee. So they can actually look at these things well in advance of meeting with the department heads, so they're better prepared.
You have to say, having used that as we've been doing in the budget process, it makes a huge difference. It was before there was, separate documents of pictures and explanations and spreadsheets, and now it's all consolidated, and it's making a huge difference as we go through that process.
Yeah.
It's much more organized, and I think it'll result in better projections and so forth going forward as well.
Correct. There is an application within ClearGov called Capital Tracking, which will allow the department heads to provide updates on the capital projects that are approved. And that way you can run reporting to show the progress that each capital project is making throughout the years. So that will be a new rollout after this fiscal year.
Great. So what are some of the challenges that you face in your work and in your profession?
Knowing how busy the department is, I would say one of the challenges is keeping organized and keeping up with everything. So within municipal finance, in our budget process, everything has a clear deadline that has to be met. So you have to make sure that, whether you're meeting with capital committee, appropriations, select board, et cetera, that you have those calendar entries scheduled well in advance in order to keep everybody else organized that needs to attend those meetings. So definitely a structured environment is critically important and something that someone has to be very good at organizing.
I could see that.
Yeah.
And what are some of the opportunities that are presented in your work?
Yeah, similar to what we were just talking about efficiency. So I see the need to streamline, become more efficient, more technology advanced within the department, which would allow for more accuracy and less manual input. When I first joined, I would notice someone inputting the same number in 3 separate spreadsheets or 5 separate spreadsheets instead of entering it once and it carries over. So ways just to improve the efficiency and automation in the department is definitely a priority for me.
Great. It just occurred to me while we're talking about annual town meeting, we talked about it a little bit earlier. This year it's going to be on a Saturday. So town meeting date has changed from a Monday night to a Saturday. We don't know the time, but likely morning.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's an all-day, one-day social event for everyone to get together and vote the budget and other initiatives in your local government. So it should be very exciting.
Yeah, has the town had a Saturday meeting or has it always been it?
We had one during COVID.
Okay.
Or maybe 2 during COVID.
Okay. Was it better attended?
It was well attended. It was outside, made a difference, but it was well attended.
Good.
So we'll see.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a different cast of residents.
Possibly. And then as of when we're sitting here talking, there's a possibility of having a December special town meeting because we are in a situation where we can give some money back to residents. So that's going to be exciting. So we'll come back and talk about that if that goes forward in another episode, another program. What are some things that people might not know about municipal finance?
The first would be the complexity of it. So we talked at the beginning of the session about how many committees, how many boards, how much review is done on the operating budget, on the capital improvement requests, et cetera. That was new to me when I joined, is I didn't realize how complex and how many people are actually involved. The other thing is that residents are able to attend any of these meetings. So if you truly want to be involved, there are so many opportunities for you to get involved, whether it's joining the meetings or actually becoming a committee member yourself. The openings are all posted out there when they become vacant, and all it takes is an application at times.
I think that's one of the most exciting things about municipal government is just the number of people that can participate and be part of that. It's a great opportunity for someone.
I love the story that when I first met you, how you attended your first town meeting and you knew that this is what you wanted to do.
Right. When I was 18, the first one I could go to, I went to. But even before then, I was reading the annual town reports.
So fun.
So how can people best reach you to ask questions about all things budget or finance?
I'm located at the town hall right on the first floor. So come and see me at any time. My email is also on the town website under the finance department, and so is my phone number. So love the engagement.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today for Hopkinton Works. I'm Elaine Lazarus, Town Manager. Have a good day.